Deutschland gewonnen. Nun gilt es, das deutsche Volk zu gewinnen.
This was one of the exciting speeches Hitler made after he assumed leadership of Germany in 1934. Hitler was the leader of the National Socialist German Workers' Party, otherwise known today as the Nazi Party. He's the man responsible for the Second World War. This is Ferdinand Porsche, an Austrian-German automotive engineer and the man behind the Porsche car company. He spent his early years working as a chief designer at Austria-Daimler and later became the company's managing director. Porsche is best known for creating the first petrol-electric hybrid vehicle in the 1900s called the Lohner Porsche Elektromobile. In the late 1920s, the Mercedes-Benz SS and SSK will be introduced. It had a 7-liter supercharged engine with a 4-speed non-synchro manual box. The next chapter tells the story of VW and the people who started it all.
Und das Schönste ist es für mich, der ich weiß, dass dieses wunderbare Regiment des deutschen Volkes und unserer Bewegung meinen Namen trägt. Halt!
As fate would have it, Ferdinand and Adolf will be introduced by a mutual friend and motorsport. Their joint venture will lead to the production of the first German car of the people. The Volkswagen factory was later to be built by the German Labour Front in 1937, and the Beetle will be produced the following year. In September of 1939, Adolf Hitler will invade Poland, making the start of the Second World War. Hitler had managed to convince Porsche to build him a fleet of army vehicles which included tanks such as the VK-450P, the Elephant, aircraft such as the V-1 flying bomber, and the Beetle-turned armored vehicle that could tackle any terrain. Beginning of the war, Ferdinand Porsche had abandoned the VW factory in quest of realizing his dream. Enter the world's first Porsche badge car, the Porsche Type 64. After the war, the VW factory was rebuilt and production of the Beetle resumed. The factory has produced 21,529,464 Beetles since 1938 and 2003, making it Volkswagen's best-selling car of all time.
At Volkswagen, we don't worry about how our car looks. We worry about how it works. So every day for the past 25 years, we've been testing and torturing things like door hinges and hood locks, seats, and shock absorbers. No other car goes through so much for so little.
In 1974, Volkswagen started rebranding its production line with the Mark I Golf or Rabbit, depending on which side of the continent you're from. The Golf had box styling and 3 doors, making it the first hot hatch to be ever invented. The Mark I Jetta will be launched 5 years later, having the same characteristics as the Golf, boasting extra boot space. The Jetta shared the same suspension setup as the Golf, McPherson strut front suspension, and a twist beam at the rear. Fast forward 40 years later, and the general public is still having a blast. Some people have turned them into collector's item. The Golf was also produced in South Africa under the name City Golf from 1984 to 2009.
This is the man who put 1 million on black, and it came up red. This is the man who married a sex kitten, just as she turned into a cat. This is the man who moved into gold, just as the clever money moved out. This is the man who drives a Volkswagen.
The second generation Golf launched in 1983. The Mark II kept its general lines from its Gigaro design predecessor, but slightly more rounded. It was VW's highest volume seller from 1983 and remained in German production until late 1992. A year later, the Jetta Mark II would appear, based on the same platform as the Golf and had a larger cabin. The Jetta had 470 liters of boot space thanks to its overall length increase of 100 millimeters. The suspension setup remained unchanged from the Mark I, but it was improved by adding a separate subframe for mounting the front control arm to help with noise isolation. However, That never stopped a couple of VW enthusiasts from trying something new and going wild with customizations. Who could ever forget this story? This is the Mark III Jetta VR6 featured in the popular Hollywood film The Fast and the Furious in 2001. The Mark III Golf and Jetta were introduced in 1991 and 1992 respectively. The styling was panned by a design team led by Herbert Schweiffer, and again the car became more aerodynamic than the previous generations, achieving a drag coefficient of 0.32. The first VR6 was to be introduced in 1992. The name VR6 comes from the German initial for V engine, in German translation V motor, and the straight inline engine, German for Reichsmotor. Therefore, the VR6 engine is described as a V inline engine or VR motor in German. The engine developed a whopping 128 kilowatts of power and 235 Newton meters of torque. You only got it in a 5-speed manual gearbox, and all of this power is sent to the front wheels. Custom sporty bumpers, the latest wheels from BBS, and Recaro bucket seats were part of this exciting pack. The suspensions were completely new rather than overthought parts. The engines were more powerful and more fuel efficient, boasting the latest safety features with names sounding like sexually transmitted diseases such as ABS, TCM, EBD, and SRS airbags, just to name a few. The cabin was freshly redesigned, adding lots of soft touch materials, electric seats, and more electric everything. These cars have been around for over 25 years, and they've been proven to be the cornerstone of what VW stands and thrives for: reliable cars of the people. Growing up, I always aspired to have one of these cars. It is a supercar in its own right. It's amazing how the VR6 technology inspired the work that would follow in the W16 engine featured in the Bugatti. The VR6 came and gone when Volkswagen started producing the VR5. In contrast, this car became a collector's item, and its name sits high up there with the GTI brand. You just have to have one. Special thanks to the Vura boys for allowing me to tell the best story ever told. Thank you for watching, and thank you for subscribing to X on Cars. See you on my next episode. Cheers, goodbye.